I was saying, Yashua Rico from StreetScores. I had to eat, let my voice rest just a little bit, and rewatch some of that game. And now it's time to do a full breakdown of how the Washington Commanders just skunked the Browns. Because, you know, we was up 21 points and then more than 21 points at a certain point in that game. We could have done them worse, but we chilled out. We rested our starters and everything, but we could have did them boys bad. Nah, we spared them a little bit. But either way, man, we got to talk about every single position group: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line, the entire defensive line, linebacker, cornerback, safety, and even special teams as well. Of course, the overall offense from Cliff Kingsbury's point of view, overall defense from Joe Witt Jr.'s point of view. He had an exceptional day as a defensive coordinator. Great scheme going into that game. We got to talk about how we have an all-pro linebacker in Frankie Luvu, best linebacker we've had since London Fletcher, easily. Our run game is unstoppable right now. Jayden Daniels' maturity is ridiculous. The defense is alive, and our kicker is still 100% on the season and more. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content, man. I'm gonna keep y'all updated on everything Commanders. Of course, I live stream every single game. Shouts out to all of y'all that pulled up during the live stream, everybody that donated, left likes. Shouts out to everybody that pulled up for the call-in show afterwards and called in and voiced your opinion and passion for what the Commanders are doing right now. Y'all already know I'm doing daily uploads on the overall channel for everybody to see, but I'm also doing exclusive film sessions just for channel members only. So if you're not one, go become one. If you already are, welcome to the family, and let's get to it, man. Let's get to this video right now. Adam. And would you look at here, man? DC finally has a good team in a long time, man. Beating the Browns 34-13. Again, we should have did them bad. We should have done them even worse than that. We spared them boys. We are now 4-1 on the season. That is incredible. I mean, first of all, the way that the Ravens were struggling against the Bengals, I don't know. I'm feeling a little confident going into that game. We'll see, though. But just to let you know, at 4-1, we already have as many wins through 5 weeks as we had through last season in 17 weeks. Well, 17 games, 18 weeks, just to let you know. That's incredible. Also, shouts out to everybody that went to the game, because y'all contributed to the best home atmosphere and the biggest home field advantage we've ever had, like 12th man wise, in probably since that 2012 last game of the season going against the Cowboys to win a division on RG3's rookie season. That was amazing, man. I mean, people there were saying that it really was like 90% Commanders fans, and it hasn't been like that in a long time. They were saying it was loud and everything. We're gonna get there, though. We're gonna talk about that a little bit more, because our crowd was even doing the wave at a certain point. Like, we were just dancing on them. I heard "Do You Remember" and playing in the stadium when it was like 3 minutes left. Man, it was a party in there, man. It was basically like a cookout. We got to the point it wasn't even no game anymore. It was just a celebration. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the offensive side of the ball. We got to highlight some things that Cliff Kingsbury did well, and of course, a couple of things that he didn't necessarily do so well throughout the game. So first of all, Jayden Daniels was sacked on 3rd down, like immediately. Like, that first initial drive was not a good one, even though I probably placed more blame on Jayden Daniels than anything else. We did not start well. The offensive line allowed a lot of pressure. Jayden Daniels and that Washington Commanders offense did not come out and score on their opening drive for the first time since, I guess, week 1, maybe. I don't think we scored our opening drive week 1 since then. I think we've scored on opening drives at least minimum with field goals. So that immediate 3 and out felt a little weird, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, we do have Tressway on the team, man. That was crazy. So it was, of course, time to like sit down and be like, okay, the Browns are starting to hit us with stacked boxes. They're going to try to stop the run. They're playing man coverage across the board. We got to see how we adjust, because that's not necessarily something that we've gone against, especially to the capacity that the Browns was throwing it at us. Other teams, the Bengals tried one thing, the Cardinals tried another couple of things, and then the Browns threw something completely different at us. Again, some cover 1, even some cover 0, very aggressive, keeping everything in front of them, man coverage. So it was just a matter of time before Cliff Kingsbury finally got into his bag. I mean, Lord have mercy. And Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah, man, an interception and a forced fumble. He's the only reason we didn't put 50 on them boys, man. That 1 yard line interception that he had on Jayden Daniels when Jayden Daniels just didn't see him. I mean, it's just time that, you know, Cliff Kingsbury, at a certain point, I'm looking at you. Now, granted, Jayden Daniels wasn't executing at the highest level, but I was looking at him like, all right, some of these play calls are a little questionable, man. Get in your bag. He definitely did that, though. Definitely did that. And so, again, at a certain point, Cleveland was clearly stacking the box against us. They were playing more so stop the run, playing a lot of man, forcing us to beat them through the air. And then eventually we started to do that, man. I mean, this was really like the first time we've been forced to be like a pass first offense all season. Our run game has been so deadly all year that we were able to just run the ball, and Jayden Daniels was able to basically complement the run game. No, this time Jayden Daniels had to win the game for us, basically. The run game still ended up being dominant. I mean, we still ended up running for a total of 215 yards, which is still insane. I mean, I feel like a lot of people aren't necessarily noticing how dominant our run game has been so far. Running for 215 yards is incredible. We ran for over 200 yards last week as well, 2 weeks in a row. Over like 430 yards combined is absolutely insane. It's something ridiculous going on right now. Also, shouts out to the fact that we go for it on fourth downs. We're so efficient on third downs too, man. I mean, today we weren't necessarily as efficient as we've been the past few weeks, but still going 8 of 17 on third downs is insane, especially since you also go perfect on fourth downs, 2 for 2 of the day, which now adds up to like what, 8 of 8 or 9 of 9 for the season, man. And again, we went for it on 4th and 2 inside the red zone. Eckler hit the reverse for a first down. That play call, that play design was absolutely insane. I mean, he dug deep in his bag for that one, and the Browns just were not ready to stop it. And then you can also tell that Cliff Kingsbury also learned his lesson, because remember, Jayden Daniels threw an interception at the 1 yard line. Well, the very next time we got into the red zone, we just ran it with Brian Robinson twice in a row. He ended up getting it, man. I mean, he finally recovered from his questionable play calls, man. That fourth down play call to Austin Eckler was absolutely genius. Also, there was a certain point in the game, I think it was when we were backed up in our own end zone, and it was like really not much you could really call from the offense there, like from a Cliff Kingsbury standpoint of things. But that was kind of weird how the ref stood over the ball for so long, to where like the Browns player could take his ever-loving time to go ahead and get up off the field and get to the sideline, so it wouldn't be too many men on the field for the defense. And then by the time the ref moved, it was like 3 seconds left on the play clock. I'm like, why is the play clock still moving if we're waiting on this Browns DB to move off to the field? But that is what it is. But you know, through the first quarter, things were looking a little ugly. You know what I'm saying? Weeks 2 through 4. Weeks 2, 3, and 4, Tressway punted once. Week 5, he punted twice in just the first quarter. So we're looking like, I know a lot leading up to this game, a lot of people were saying, yeah, the Commanders' offense looks historically great, but what do they actually do against a good defense? People were, you know, yeah, the Bengals, not that good of a defense. The Cardinals, look at them against the 49ers, but it is what it is. And then people were like, okay, let's see if they can pass the test against the Browns. And they absolutely did that, man. And I love how, like, play action pass, we were killing the Browns today. We continue to do that exotic smash mouth football that Linnell Willingham keeps talking about, because it's smash mouth football at the end of the day. We're running it down people's throats, but it's just so exotic and creative, it almost doesn't feel like it. It's like a perfect blend of both exotic and smash mouth, even though it's pretty much an oxymoron. Somehow Cliff Kingsbury is finding a way to stick with that perfectly. And man, that long Eckler run, dog, where we were like on our own 20-yard line, he broke free for like, I don't know how many yards that was, 40 or something like that. The play design was so perfect. Tyler Biadasz and Samuel Cosme pulled to open up that wide open hole for him right now. Our run game design is elite right now. There was even one play where Jayden Daniels did like a keeper, like a quarterback design run. It wasn't a read option where he kept it. No, this was like before the snap is called, you're running this way. We also pulled a lot of offensive linemen to get in front of him for that as well. Cliff Kingsbury is ridiculous. Also, one of the themes of Cliff Kingsbury's offense that continues to thrive right now is that if you make a bad play, you make up for it very soon. Like one play, Zach Ertz almost fumbled it, but it was ruled incomplete. And then like the very next play, he ran the same exact route and caught the pass for like a 3-4 yard catch. And I mean, we ended up kicking a field goal off of it, but Cliff Kingsbury seems to be very serious about, you make a mistake, you make up for it. We did it last week a lot with his Lamide Zaccheaus after his taunting penalty. That wasn't really a taunting penalty. The week before that, I think, was De'Ami Brown. And then the week before that was Zach Ertz again, where he had like a false start. And then we hit him for a route to get a first down within like a couple of plays. So Cliff Kingsbury has a clear motive. First of all, he trusts his team, he trusts his players, and then also he sent it a message like, you make a mistake, we're going to come right back to you to make up for it. So you're going to be the reason we get a first down or a positive play soon after that anyway. Also, at a certain point in this game, we had 157 total yards. 123 of them came on 2 plays. That's the importance of being an explosive offense right there, where if things even aren't on schedule, you're still producing and putting up points because you're just that explosive as well. I love the fact that we have both. We have efficiency, we have, you know, time of possession, converting first downs, keep getting more and more first downs, converting third downs, converting fourth downs, keeping the ball in our hands and away from our defense having to touch the field. But then even when that's not working and we're not getting all of the first downs that we're used to, especially these last couple of weeks, we can still explode for big 66-yard bombs to Terry McLaurin from Jayden Daniels. How about a 40-yard run from Austin Eckler? You know what I'm saying? And that's big time, man. That is very helpful, man. I mean, and at a certain point, the Browns were just starting to be dysfunctional, man. Their defense was called for 12 men on the field twice within 4 plays. Like, what is that? And their offense was even more dysfunctional. We'll get to that a little later when we talk about our defense. And man, it's crazy that our offense was, you could argue, out of sync today. Like, did not necessarily play real, like, fluid, effective, efficient football for real. And we still had, like, what, at least 17 at the half at a certain point. We had 24 at the half, because then we had that last drive right there before the half ended. So that is just crazy that we went up against a good defense, wasn't on our A game or offense, and still put up 24 points in the half. I mean, what can really stop us from here? You know what I'm saying? Like, if we can do that when we're going against a good defense and we're not on our A game or offense and still put up 24 points, what defense can stop us? You know what I'm saying? Shouts out to Mason Kennedy for pointing this out. He said, when was the last time you heard an announcer describes Washington's offense as one that can, quote, beat you in so many different ways, unquote? And that's a great point, because Cliff Kingsbury seems to have an answer for everything. I love it. No matter what a defense throws at us, we have an answer for them. Basically making defenses wrong no matter what you do. You better hope out of the multiple choice question that you pick the one right one, because there's so many wrong ones out there, and you just basically got to get lucky. There's no film study, there's no talent necessarily that can really make up for it. You're going to be wrong no matter what you do. Really, at this point, you just got to hope you're the least wrong defensively against this Commanders offense right now. I mean, come on, dog. We started off so slow and ended up with a 17-point quarter in the second quarter. We only scored 1 touchdown in the first quarter. How dare we? I mean, the Cleveland Browns didn't score any points. You know, they've scored every opening drive so far this season. Today was the first time that they didn't. They had 24 opening drive points, which means a touchdown in each of 3 games and a field goal in another. They walked away the entire field goal for first quarter with no points. So how dare we only score 7, huh? And then we scored 17 in the second quarter, our highest scoring quarter of the game. But that's because we took our foot off the gas. We even started pulling starters. We'll get there. I mean, come on, dog. We started wearing those Bears down, man. They started to look tired. Cliff Kingsbury and Jayden Daniels made adjustments. They adapted, and then it got ugly for them boys, man. I mean, we are literally like that team right now. We are, and it starts with the offense, man. I mean, 24-3, and we had a red zone interception. It could have been at minimum 27-3 going into halftime, man. This offense literally looks unstoppable. Shouts out to Chris Russell for this. The Commanders have put up 24 points in the first half, and it could have and should have been even more than that. Far from perfect, obviously, but that's the scary part. Could have been at least 31 points and maybe even more if we were on point. We were off. Like, granted, the Browns did some good things, but I just feel like we also just hurt ourselves. Like, we shot ourselves in the foot a couple of times, especially in the first half, and to still put up 24 points in the first half against, again, we're not talking about a lousy defense. We're talking about this same defense that the national media was hyping up and acting like, oh, this is going to be the day that the Commanders don't go out there and score 30-something points and look historically efficient. And so that's the defense that we weren't on our A game against and still balled out. And then we came out the third quarter, and Terry McLaurin allows them to Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who most of us wanted to draft in that draft a few years ago. He had that interception that took away potential points from us at the 1-yard line, that one drive. And then the very first play of the third quarter, he punches the ball out of Terry McLaurin's arms, man. And he didn't even try to go for the tackle, just straight up aim punch type of thing. That was pretty crazy. I ain't gonna lie, great play from him. And so Terry McLaurin, man, I mean, he had a solid game going, but then he ended up fumbling, and then the defense had to bail us out right there. But just to let you know, the Commanders have scored 30 points in 3 straight games for the first time since 2005. This is the 8th time it's ever happened in team history. That is insane right there, man. The Commanders also at a certain point were up 25, and they had outgained the Browns 365 to 94 total yards. And it was really after that we kind of took our foot off the gas, both offensively and defensively. We got close to sitting Jayden Daniels, which we did at like 13 minutes left, shortly under 13 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And even defensively, especially after Quan Martin got hurt, making a tackle, he ended up being okay. We're going to talk about that later. But even defensively, we started to take our foot off the gas. We started to play really soft zone coverage, let them catch whatever they want underneath, and then rally to them so that we could keep chewing up the clock and things like that. But also, Washington Commanders have now recorded 3 rushing touchdowns in 3 consecutive games each for the first time in franchise history. It's crazy to think with all of those dominant run games we've had, like with John Riggins and those boys, that we've never done that before. That's insane. Also, the Commanders are the second team in NFL history to have 3+ rushing touchdowns in 4 of their first 5 games of the season. They join only the 1954 San Francisco 49ers as another team that has ever done that in NFL history. Also, Washington is the first team since 1970 to score 150 or more points in their first 5 games while starting a rookie quarterback. So right now, we are off to the best rookie quarterback start in NFL history. Also, though, as we got later into the game, we already had a big lead. I didn't like 2 straight deep drops when we were up 25 at a certain point in that third quarter. I mean, Jayden Daniels clearly got banged up on that last sack. We're going to talk about that later because he talked about that in his press conference after the game about how he's feeling. But, I mean, we got to a certain point, man. The wave was being done by the Washington Commanders fan base crowd at the stadium, man. And then after they did the wave, that's when Austin Ekeler ripped off that 33-yard run, man, all the way down to the Cleveland 18. I mean, the atmosphere had to be insane. I wish I was there. And then also, we were in an ugly situation where it was like 3rd and long, and we ended up hitting Austin Ekeler for a big-time screen, man. And Jayden Daniels did look a little ginger, jogging down after the play, clearly banged up. But, man, you could just tell that we could have easily have scored 50 points if we really wanted to, and if we kept our starters in, and Jayden Daniels doesn't throw that red zone interception where he actually looked like a rookie. You know what I'm saying? I mean, how dare he look like a rookie when he's a rookie? But, I mean, the best part is that we now know that we could beat pretty much any defense, no matter the strategy or strengths of that defense, man. This offense is literally unstoppable. Don't forget that Terry also allowed himself to be shoestring tackled on that deep bomb from Jayden Daniels in the first quarter. That's another play we could have had points, because after that shoestring tackle on that 66-yard bomb from Jayden on the run, just a flick of the wrist by Jayden Daniels and Terry McLaurin, he ended up throwing that interception a couple of plays later. So, that we walked away with no points after that 66-yard bomb to Terry McLaurin, which is insane. I mean, just ridiculous. So just remember, we had a goal line interception. We had multiple drops by wide receivers, including a perfect dime from Jayden Daniels to Terry McLaurin in the corner in the end zone. And then we also gave the ball back to the Browns immediately to start the second half, and we still won by 3 scores. That is absolutely insane, dog. Also, my boy Jamal Etlet Martella asked one sentence to take away from today's game. My boy Mark Bullock replied perfectly: offensive ceiling is stupid high. They've not come anywhere close to getting near it, and they're getting 30+ points a game. That is the scary part here for other teams. We are not executing at a very high level, a very consistent level, and yet we're still doing what we're doing. I can't wait to see what this offense looks like when it's fully realized. First of all, when we have a fully healthy Brian Robinson. Now, shouts out to Austin Ekeler and, of course, Jeremy McNichols as well for stepping up big time. And Brian Robinson still had two touchdown runs, but you can tell that Brian Robinson was hurt that game. Like, we only used them when we had to. Like, man, this is the perfect Brian Robinson situation. You got to throw him out there for this. Goal line touchdowns, the occasional third down and stuff like that. But other than that, Brian Robinson was banged up. You know what I'm saying? It could have been worse for them boys. And again, 34 points before the fourth quarter even starts against a good defense. I mean, that's insane, man. That is insane level stuff from an offense. Also, the Washington Commanders have scored 38, 42, and 34 points in each of their last 3 games. That's 114 points, or an average of 38 points per game. And again, they weren't even super crisp today in a lot of ways against a good defense. I really want to emphasize that because the national media hyped up that defense all week. I don't want to hear nothing after we put up 34 points on them easily, and then people are going to act like this defense wasn't good. And they forced 2 turnovers, so I don't want to hear nothing. Now moving on to the quarterbacks, man. I mean, that 60 yards in the air off like platform, running to his right, didn't even get a chance to really set his feet, flick to Terry McLaurin was insane, man. I mean, that throw for 66 yards against 60 air yards is absolutely insane. And I don't think if y'all remember, but like that was on 3rd and 13. Like we're threatening to punt basically, like, oh man, this is another offensive drive that's about to stall out. Up to this point, I don't think we have any points in the game, I don't think. And I mean, just that fadeaway release was absolutely insane, dog. Like, what kind of stuff? Yeah, we didn't have points yet. It's 3rd and 13, 9 minutes and 14 seconds left in the third, and he's under complete pressure. 2 guys pretty much almost go unblocked. He escapes that, and without even having a chance to set his feet, flicks it 60 yards through the air, and Terry McLaurin ends up with a 66-yard completion. But then he missed Zach Ertz wide open on 2nd and goal, and then he threw an interception to Zach Ertz on 3rd and goal, which lets me know that, first of all, Jayden Daniels, you know, he looked like a rookie today. He looked like the type of rookie where, like, there's a reason you took him 2nd overall. You saw elite flashes, you saw elite playmaking like that 66-yard bomb, but you also saw him not reading the field and pressure getting to him where he's kind of going through his progressions too quickly and going through them faster than he wants to because of the pressure that the Browns were getting on him early in the game. And also, again, that interception at the 1-yard line to JOK, you could just kind of tell, rookie mistake. He missed Zach Ertz wide open on the 2nd down. Somebody probably made sure he knew that, like brought that to his attention. So then he forced it to Zach Ertz on 3rd down, and that's where he ended up throwing the interception. I'm not too mad at that. But he also missed Luke McCaffrey wide open a lot today. Even when he was balling out, Luke McCaffrey was wide open. He needs to start getting the ball more, because honestly, if he was giving the ball every time he was wide open, he probably would have had a 100-yard day, and Jayden Daniels' stats would have been much more efficient, because he ended up finishing the day 14 of 25 for 238 passing yards, which is still pretty good, but I'm pretty sure it would have been even far more efficient than that if he just targeted and looked at Luke McCaffrey a little bit more. Even one of those throws to Terry McLaurin that ended up being incomplete down the field, Luke McCaffrey was wide open right to the left of him. So just got to see him a little bit more, man. But also, I mean, you could just tell they did everything they could to like bring out the rookie in them. Again, sending a lot of pressure, playing man coverage, but Jayden Daniels' accuracy, especially on the run, looked elite, man. Because then he had another amazing throw on the run to Terry McLaurin for like a big time 1st down later in the game as well, man. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then when we were backed up in our own end zone, remember, he tried to loft it real quick. And I understand there's a lot of pressure coming at him, so he can't hold on to the ball for too long, but he ended up trying to loft it up. Zach Ertz is wide open over the middle, and I doubt Zach Ertz is fast enough to score a touchdown there, but that's a huge play that potentially even changes the game even more than it already was, blown out of proportion. But either way, that would have been really nice. I feel like he threw it thinking that he was throwing it to Terry McLaurin or De'Ami Brown deep down the field, but it was old Zach Ertz, and that's on Jayden Daniels. But Zach Ertz is slower than those guys. Jayden Daniels has to adjust to that and realize that. And then he also had another bad throw where it seemed like he just kind of forced it deep down the field. Shouts out to Terry McLaurin for turning into a DB to force like to be incomplete instead of an interception. Shouts out to him. And again, just to really emphasize how open Luke McCaffrey was, man, I may have to do a film session on Luke McCaffrey specifically, because that guy was open so much in that game. We got to start to target him a little bit more, man. I mean, Jayden Daniels, definitely his decision making, especially under pressure specifically, was being exploited by Jim Schwartz. He was doing a good job. Receivers open down the field. Jayden Daniels just wasn't seeing him a lot of the time, but then he just started to make elite plays, man. Even while he's not having an efficient game, he still had a great game overall, making some plays that only a handful of quarterbacks can even make at the NFL level, man. I mean, even just we haven't even gotten to his legs yet. I mean, how about 4th and 3, slips through an impossible gap with no space, and he ends up picking up a 30 yards on it and things like that. Like, that's what you get when you play man coverage. That's what you get. He looked like a rookie today, but he's for sure showing you the flashes of why he was a 2nd overall pick, especially with his legs and his arm, man. And shouts out to George Carmi for bringing this up. He said what makes Daniels so special is that he can prolong drives. He hasn't particularly been efficient passing the ball today, but he is still generating offense and points. An ugly game, but on pace for 34 points. That was at a certain point. We were still only an hour into the game, basically. We we were shortly after halftime with that. Actually, I don't even know. We weren't even at halftime yet at that point. And Jayden Daniels was already starting to show elite flashes. And we are at a certain point where the Commanders were leading the Browns 17-3 in the first half. Daniels had a 66-yard pass and 34-yard run. The Washington Commanders defense held Cleveland only 42 net yards and 1.9 yards per play at that point. And Daniels had struggled with accuracy for the first time we've seen all season, but he was still 8 of 17 for passing, and we were still putting up points, man. Washington up 2 touchdowns against the worst offense in the NFL, Grant Paulson pointed out. Also, shouts out to Jayden Daniels because his 41-yard touchdown pass to Dyami Brown was the longest of his career so far, and that was insane. That touchdown pass to Dyami Brown was ridiculous. We're going to get there, though. First of all, Jayden Daniels has the most rushing yards for a quarterback in his first 5 career games in NFL history. Again, this is before even halftime, so it got even worse after that. Also, no player in NFL history has ever had 1,000-plus passing yards and 250-plus rushing yards in their first 5 career games until Jayden Daniels. And this is coming from Jordan Schultz saying, you're witnessing a superstar right now. That is elite stuff, man. You just can't make that stuff up, bruh. I mean, it seems like Jayden Daniels is breaking a new record every week. Is he the LeBron of football, where they're just finding random crazy stats that he's breaking that we've never even heard of before? Speaking of another stat, how about from Next Gen Stats? Jayden Daniels has forced 4 unblocked pressures in the first half, converting all 4 into first downs. 2 of 2, 78 yards, 2 scrambles for 36 rushing yards. Daniels has generated a plus 13.5 EPA per play against unblocked pressures, the most by any quarterback in the game since 2018. And again, this is before we even got to halftime. Now going back to that Dyami Brown dime, man, that was a perfect pass to him, who was open deep with his speed down the right side of the field, man. That was elite, bro. That is what Jayden Daniels was elite at in college. He's showing you he's elite at that as well at the NFL level. Those fade route deep bombs to the sideline, to the corner of the end zone, unstoppable. And that put us up to 24 points before we even got to halftime, man. And then Mark Bullock said, I wonder if Jayden even called that shot. You can see him talking to Cliff as soon as he ran back onto the field after the scramble on the previous play. Could be nothing, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jayden saw something and let Cliff know. And that's exactly what happened, because even Ryan Fowler pointed out this is special stuff from Jayden Daniels and trust from Cliff Kingsbury, because Daniels called this shot to Dyami after IDing something he liked in coverage. That's what Ryan Fowler said. And then Jayden Daniels even admitted in the press conference after the game that he asked Kingsbury for the deep shot and that he ended up hitting to Dyami Brown for the pass. So again, shouts out to Cliff Kingsbury for having trust in his guys. Terry McLaurin called that deep shot to seal the game against the Bengals at the end of the game, and then that time Jayden Daniels called that deep shot to Dyami Brown, and Cliff Kingsbury is like, well, I trust it. I'll draw up the play. I'll call the play. You just execute it. I trust you. It's just ridiculous, man. Shouts out to Tailgate Ted, because I completely agree, man. Tears of joy are a real thing. After that Dyami Brown touchdown, you couldn't help but your eyes water, man. There have been so many years of despair, but it was all worth it for us to finally have a real franchise quarterback. That is elite stuff that you just can't stop. As a defense, there's just nothing you can do there. Again, you're always wrong. Shouts out to Disco. He said Jayden Daniels is a special football player. Y'all saying I'm struggling? Hold my beer. Deep bomb to Dyami Brown. Then at halftime, just at a certain point, the Browns have allowed 33, 13, 21, and 20 points so far this season. The Washington Commanders had 24 at halftime, and we ended up scoring the most points they've allowed all season. And again, we could have put up 50 on them if we really wanted to, but this was just at halftime. We already had 24. The Commanders also had 104 points over the last 10 quarters up to halftime. That's insane. That's just ridiculous. Also, shouts out to Mason Kinahan. His halftime notes: I think Jayden Daniels may be good at football. Just play it simple. Also, Frankie Luvu is fun. Tyler Biadasz is one of the most underrated defensive linemen in this league right now. We're going to talk about that when we get to the line. Big contested catches from Luke McCaffrey and Terry so far. And this team can be very good if all 3 units are playing well. I completely agree. But shouts out to Sand Top Podcast for this one. Games like this are the complete opposite of everything we've experienced over the last 25 years. The most beautiful thing I've ever seen, especially as a Commanders fan. And just to let you know, at halftime, the Browns were 0 of 8 on third downs, 0 of 1 on fourth downs. Commanders were 4 of 10 on third third downs, but still perfect on the season on fourth downs with 2 of 2 so far at halftime. We never went for it on fourth down again the rest of the game. Also at halftime, the Browns had a 53 passing yards to our 157, and they had 14 rushing yards to our 126. So at halftime, we had more rushing yards than they had of total yards so far up to that point in the game. That is insane stuff, man. Also, later on, we came back from halftime. Jayden Daniels pulled a Houdini act where it looked like he was guaranteed to get sacked. He slipped out of the skinniest little slit right there and ended up breaking loose for like a nice 20-30 yard run, man. It was like a 32-yard scramble. It was 1st and 10. It was 6 to 24 at the time. I mean, just elite stuff, man. I have zero idea how he got out of that. His speed is ridiculous because there was a guy that wasn't even blocked at the time that was closing in on him, and he beat him to the angle right there in the pocket, which is insane. That's not just speed, that's acceleration as well, man. And then he dropped a perfect dime in the corner to Terry McLaurin, but Terry McLaurin couldn't catch it. But Terry McLaurin is not a hands catcher for real. He's a great contested catch receiver, but he's great at catching it with his body. If you ask him to catch something like this, especially in the corner of the end zone, he tried to catch it on his helmet or something, and I was really disappointed in him in not making that catch. First of all, Jayden Daniels in my fantasy team and my game was real close, so I was sick to my stomach when he didn't catch that. But also, most importantly, man, that was a perfect dot from Jayden Daniels right there. I was sick that Terry McLaurin did not catch that touchdown, because you can't ask for him to throw it that any better than that. You literally can't. There's literally nothing you can draw up, no throw you can make that can surpass that throw right there. So Terry McLaurin, I'm gonna need you to catch those from now on, my boy. I'm gonna need those to be caught from now on. And then up 34-6, 13 minutes left in the third, we took Jayden Daniels out of the game. Marcus Mariota came in to replace Jayden Daniels so that we can keep him healthy. I mean, we were pulling starters. When was the last time we've done that? Almost 13 minutes left in the fourth quarter, pulling starters, pulling your starting quarterback and all of that type of stuff, man. And shouts out to Craig Hoffman for this tweet. He said, in the first starting quarterback to exit Washington versus Cleveland is ... Jayden Daniels, not Deshaun Watson. Marcus Mariota coming in for a full quarter to basically do mop-up duty. Jayden Daniels ended the game 14 of 25, 238 yards, 1 passing touchdown, 1 interception, 11 rushes for 82 yards, bro. This guy almost had 400 yards total today if you're including his legs. Also, Craig Hoffman points out the fact that Daniels' exit means that Robert Griffin remains the only quarterback in franchise history to run for over 100 yards in a game, with 138 yards on October 14th versus Minnesota when he had that one 80-yard run in that game. So right now, I feel like, I'm not gonna lie, Jayden Daniels is due to break that eventually. I really do, because easily, if he would have just stayed in the game throughout the fourth quarter, the defense wasn't playing as well, and we need to keep scoring points, Jayden Daniels easily would have surpassed 100 yards. So right now, Robert Griffin's still our only quarterback in franchise history to do it, but Jayden Daniels is eventually gonna do it, man. I mean, I just can't believe we started resting our starters going into the fourth, dog. Like, what is that? Commanders fans are already leaving the stadium. They were trying to beat traffic. We were up 34-6 against the Browns. Insane stuff, man. When have we ever done that, man? And shouts out to Burgundy Blog, because he said backups in with almost a full quarter to play. I withdraw all previous season predictions and expectations. Anything is possible this season. I completely agree. And then Marcus Mariota went out there and showed us why he's the backup, because boy, I don't know what he was doing some of those plays. It did not look good, but thank goodness we already had enough of a lead and a cushion to where that he couldn't really mess it up. But golly, I mean, some of them plays he was making, I was like, man, thank goodness this is not our starting quarterback, dog. And what I love about Jayden the most is that he may have bad plays, but he's always bouncing back, and he seems to be like bad game proof. Yeah, he'll have bad plays, but it just seems like he's the type of guy that just has too much elite talent. He's too smart IQ wise. He's too much of a good pocket passer for him to ever just really have a bad game, because when in doubt, even if he's struggling from the pocket, he could just use his legs. And that's where he came away with that 66-yard deep bomb to Terry McLaurin, dog. And then eventually throughout the game, he starts to warm up, and then you have that perfect dot to De'Ami Brown on the right side of the field for a touchdown, and also the one that Terry McLaurin dropped on the left side of the field. And then shouts out to Colin Dunphy for this one, at MofoPod, who's always a big time stats guy, so make sure you follow him if you love stats. He said probably in his worst game in terms of EPA per play, definitely success rate, and it was still a positive EPA per play. It speaks to his explosive play ability, man. So when in doubt, he's pretty much the spirit of the offense. When you're talking about the offense or when you're talking about Jayden Daniels, both of them, even when we're not efficient, we can still be explosive. How do you stop this, man? And they asked Jayden Daniels after the game, you looked a bit hurt on that one big hit from the pocket, right? He said, quote, I was over exaggerating. I wasn't hurt, unquote. And I think he's lying there, but I appreciate him for putting our minds at ease and things like that. And I've been screaming even before we drafted the guy. He takes a lot of quarterbacks, especially at the NFL level, take more hits from the pocket than they do running. So I like the fact that we have a mobile quarterback as Jayden Daniels, because the biggest hit I could argue that he's taken all season was that sack right there, and that was not him using his legs. That would have been, if Tom Brady was in the pocket, that would have happened. Also, crazy stat mentioned on the Fox broadcast, the last time a rookie quarterback beat Jim Schwartz's defense was in 2016. Not a Commanders rookie. How about any rookie quarterback that has beat Jim Schwartz's defense was 2016? That is insane stuff, dog. Also, I love the fact that Jayden Daniels was able to make free rushers miss and create big plays under pressure in the Commanders' win over the Browns, man. Daniels was blitzed on more than half of his dropbacks, but was 8 of 12 for 150 yards in those situations. Do not blitz him. Shouts out to Sean SYED for that one on Twitter, man. Do not blitz him. Again, when there were times where there was a free rusher, a guy completely unblocked, he made people look silly all game, man. I really don't know what you're supposed to do. Also, just to let you know, shouts out to Air Raid Concepts for this one. Jayden Daniels has surpassed CJ Stroud's total EPA from his rookie season in just 5 weeks, y'all. That is incredible stuff. Also, Jayden Daniels on a 17-game pace right now is basically destined to throw for 27 total touchdowns. If you're taking his 5-game sample size and stretching it onto a 17-game pace, 27 total touchdowns, 1,020 rushing yards, and 3,859 passing yards, even though I think he's going to end up surpassing that. Yeah, maybe his completion percentage may suffer a little bit, but I think overall statistically he's going to end up outdoing that by the end of the season. Also, Jayden Daniels now ranks first in EPA plus CPOE. He's first in adjusted EPA per play and first in just overall EPA per play. He has now surpassed Josh Allen in EPA per play today. He is the best quarterback in the NFL across multiple advanced statistics in the entire NFL right now. What do you do against a guy like this, dog? A rookie living like this. Now, after talking about just Cliff Kingsbury and Jayden Daniels for 30 minutes alone, and I didn't even do as much of a deep dive as I wanted to, because I'm like, we still got a lot more to talk about with the rest of the team. So we're going to get there. And of course, I'm going to do some more breakdowns throughout the week. So we'll dive into some of those crazy stats. We'll find even more ridiculous stats about Jayden Daniels and this overall offense. I already found some already that I can't wait to give to y'all, but I'm going to save it for my next video when I'm talking about all of the stats and stuff. So moving on to the running backs, dog. They had a ridiculous game. First of all, Brian Robinson came into this game hobbled. Like, you could just even see, you could tell that he was injured by the fact that they just barely used him. They used him only when they really needed to. When it was like a touchdown situation where goal line, if it's third and short, that's the only time we utilize Brian Robinson. That has not been his role these first few weeks, even when Austin Eckler was healthy. And then shouts out to Austin Eckler for coming back and helping us in a big way with 67 yards rushing. And then on top of that, also 30 yards receiving, man. Really appreciate all of that. But and then his longest reception was 33 yards. I think the other one was like a loss of 3. That's how it ended up happening. But either way, my point is, man, shouts out to Austin Eckler for coming back healthy. Got to give you big props. Shouts out to Jeremy McNichols. We're talking about him as well. But Brian Robinson, even when Austin Eckler was fully healthy, was still getting the ball early and often. First, second downs, often getting the most carries on the game. Today, he wasn't able to do that because he was banged up. He only had 7 carries. Austin Eckler had 6. Jeremy McNichols had 7. Jayden Daniels led the team with 11 carries. You know what I'm saying? So Brian Robinson typically getting double-digit carries easily every game since he's been healthy. Today was the first day that he wasn't healthy, and shouts out to him for still having an amazing game. 2 touchdowns, only on 18 yards rushing on 7 carries. I'll still take it, man. I mean, the fact that he's able to run the way that he does. Also, shouts out to him because one of them Jayden Daniels plays, I think it was the 6-yard bomb where he escapes the pocket. I think Brian Robinson was able to make contact with both of those defenders that were basically almost about to come through on block, and Jayden Daniels still made an amazing play to evade them. But Brian Robinson helped a lot right there, man. Great blitz pickup right there that allowed Jayden Daniels to even get outside of the pocket. So Brian Brian Robinson's pass protection has even improved mightily the past couple of years. And then also, man, big boy touchdown run by Brian Robinson after that 4th down conversion way earlier in the first quarter, man. I mean, breaking a tackle and then outrunning the angle to the corner of the end zone with a big time block by Luke McCaffrey. We got to give him big credit for that touchdown run, the first one from Brian Robinson. But also, man, I mean, just to completely break that first tackle and then outrun everybody, he's still putting up elite numbers right now. Now, rushing yards wise, he wasn't elite, but the touchdowns are still stacking up. Again, he's banged up, so I'm not surprised. I'm actually surprised, if anything, that he was able to get 2 touchdowns today, because, I mean, with how hobbled that he was, I thought other people were going to get more carries, and they kind of did. But when Brian Robinson was needed, they utilized him, man. And that's crazy, because shouts out to Brian Colbert Jr. He said that is Brian Robinson's first touchdown at home. If that is true, that is crazy, because he's been here for a few years now. If that's his first touchdown at home, that is insane. Also, Brian Robinson rushed for his 4th touchdown this season. He ended up getting his 5th one again later on this game. And now that's 3 straight games with a Brian Robinson touchdown. So shouts out to him, man. He's as automatic as it gets for fantasy right now. Even while banged up, no yards really, still had 2 touchdowns, man. And then Austin Eckler, dog, that shake and bake he had on that 57-yard run, well, 50-yard run, whatever that was insane, man. He's still a great player. The cut, the running, and everything was elite, man. He even made some really good special teams plays that I want to acknowledge right now, because I'll probably forget about it by the time we get to special teams. But that one time, that Browns kicker, it may have been Dustin Hopkins, he kicked it to almost like at an angle on that kickoff return to where like it probably would have went out of bounds at the 1-yard line, would have put us in terrible field positioning. Austin Eckler had to like toe tap on the sideline to get it, and to still find a way to still get us to like the 15-20-yard line. I feel like that was a very underrated play from him in that game that a lot of people may not have noticed, may not talk about much, but that was an elite play that even though the result wasn't good, he prevented it from being terrible. So shouts out to him for that. And then Brian Robinson got in on his 2nd touchdown. Shouts out to Jayden Daniels for the run before that. But Tyler Biadasz is blocking his tail off, especially on that 2nd Brian Robinson run. And I know he had a knee injury, but when you hear about the fact that he had 2 touchdowns, maybe people are thinking that, okay, we're playing the Browns this week, maybe that injury wasn't real. Let me just act like I never got hurt and let me go get me 2 touchdowns. Also, I love the fact that this team is having so much fun, man, because he went up and hugged Major Tutty, the mascot, after his 2nd touchdown. This is just a very fun team, man. I really love it. Also, man, when Jayden Daniels hit Terry McLaurin for a nice gain sometime later in the game as well, Austin Eckler had an excellent blitz pickup, which allowed Jayden Daniels to have the time in the pocket to throw that little comeback out route type of thing to Terry McLaurin later on in the game for like 20 yards for a 1st down. Also, Jeremy McNichols got in on the fun as well, because he ran over a defender for a rushing touchdown where it was blocked well, but they still have more guys than we can block, and then he made them wrong by running over the only guy that was there to stop him. Shouts out to him for earning that touchdown. Then you had the Austin Eckler 33-yard screenplay on 3rd and 12. I mean, just when you think you have this offense stopped, we pull out a screenplay. And shouts out to Cliff Kingsbury, because that was shortly after Jayden Daniels was hobbled. He got banged up on that sack, so it was kind of like, all right, let's just throw a screen pass on 3rd and 12 to keep Jayden Daniels healthy, rather than asking him to like go back and do like a 5-step drop and scan the field and potentially put him in harm's way again. So shouts out to Cliff Kingsbury for that play call. Shouts out to Austin Eckler and all of the blocking for that execution. And then Jeremy McNichols came in right after that, had a really good run on 3rd and 11 later on in the game in garbage time, like way later in the game. He had a 30-yard run to keep the clock running on 3rd and 11 when I thought we were about to end up punting it. Just elite stuff. And also, before we leave the running backs, just to let you know, Brian Robinson Jr. announced via Instagram, his Instagram, that his grandma's birthday was the day. Happy birthday, Brian Robinson's grandma. I hope I get this video out before it's 12 a.m. And she is also officially breast cancer free. Robinson had 2 touchdowns today to celebrate the good news. So shouts out to Brian Robinson. Even though he was banged up, he still made sure he contributed. And big shouts out to his grandma, man. This is just all great news on the Brian Robinson end of things. I love it. Moving on to wide receiver, 66-yard bomb to Terry McLaurin on 3rd and long. That guy can get open deep, man. People just can't can't keep up with him long range, bruh. I don't know what it is, but they just cannot. They can't run with him. This guy's open over the top a lot. Also, Terry McLaurin now with 5,540 yards as of just the first quarter. We're just talking about the first quarter. Passed wide receiver Jerry Smith for the 7th most receiving yards in franchise history. Again, that was just the first quarter after that 66-yard reception. He also went on to continue to get more receiving yards. He finished the day with 4 receptions on 112 yards. You see just how even everything is split up, man. This is more of a compliment to all, Cliff Kingsbury and Jayden Daniels, even though we are talking about the receivers right now. But just looking at Terry McLaurin's stats. Terry McLaurin had 4 receptions. De'Ami Brown had 2. Austin Eckler 2. Luke McCaffrey 3. Olamide 1. Zach Ertz 2. And Bryson Tremaine 1 on that last screen. We're going to talk about that when we get there. But like Olamide Zaccheaus was your leading receiver last week. This week he only has 1 reception for 10 yards. Even though he did have another target where he got popped and dropped it on 3rd and long. I think that was from Marcus Mariota, maybe, I believe it was, towards the end of the game. But that just shows you like why you can't game plan for this offense right now, because it can be anybody's day. They're taking whatever the defense gives them. They're not specifically trying to target one person all the time, and that's what keeps us balanced and defenses guessing. I love the fact that Terry McLaurin was involved early and often as well. I mean, he almost had 80 yards receiving before the end of the first quarter, man. And then Luke McCaffrey, man, again on that first Brian Robinson one, Luke McCaffrey was the winning block on that play. Now, shouts out to Brian Robinson for having the speed to get to that corner of the end zone, but that play probably doesn't happen if Luke McCaffrey doesn't make that excellent block, so we got to give him credit. Also, shouts out to Olamide Zaccheaus, because even though he only had 10 yards receiving, he recovered that fumble on that Austin Eckler long play. Austin Eckler's best play of the day, he fumbled at the end. Shouts out to Olamide for having the awareness to recover that. Also, Luke McCaffrey made a great contested catch that you can honestly make an easy argument for being pass interference. The guy was tackling him, I think it was Greg Newsome, one of their better corners, already tackling him before the ball even got there, and he still found a way to come up with that catch for a first down. Great concentration from the rookie. And again, I also want to acknowledge the fact that Luke McCaffrey was open a lot today. If Jayden Daniels would have seen him all day, every time he was open, he probably would have went for 100 yards, but it's cool. It's only a matter of time before that chemistry starts to continue to grow, man. I mean, Jayden Daniels just simply didn't see him. Also, I do want to point out the fact that no Noah Brown. Well, we got more Browns to go around. How about De'Ami Brown deep bomb touchdown? I didn't even necessarily mean to make it rhyme and just flow so well. It was too easy, man. I mean, you say, oh man, we missed Noah Brown, and we did. I'm not gonna lie, we missed Noah Brown in a lot of different ways today. We ultimately made it seem like we didn't with our point output and how efficient we were on offense, but Noah Brown not being out there still mattered. But dog, no Noah Brown, how about De'Ami Brown? You know what I'm saying? We don't run out of Browns around here, dog. And then we throw one for a deep bomb touchdown at the corner of the end zone. Great play from De'Ami right there. It was only a matter of time for him, man. Terry McLaurin has also now officially reached 400 career receptions. He now joins Santana Moss and Gary Clark as the only players to register 400 plus receptions in their first 6 seasons at Washington. And then, of course, Terry McLaurin had that fumble to start the third quarter, and I was immediately looking at him like, boy, you better make up for that fumble. And then he kind of did, because the very next drive is when he had that catch where he was wide open, where Austin Eckler had that great blitz pickup that I was talking about earlier. Jayden Daniels threw him like a little comeback to the outside route type of thing towards the sideline for a big time first down. And then also, I love the stiff arm as well, man. I mean, that stiff arm after he made the catch was beautiful. I love the aggression. And so again, he ended the game with 4 catches, 112 yards. I love that. But then he should have had even more, because he dropped that easy touchdown in the corner. Well, I'm not going to say easy, because it's wide open. You're supposed to catch that as an NFL receiver, especially if you expect us to consider you a number 1 receiver, one of the best receivers in the NFL. You got to catch that. I'm not acting like I could have made that catch in real life, but Terry McLaurin, you got to catch that, man. I mean, Jayden Daniels threw a perfect dime to the corner of the end zone to Terry McLaurin, but he couldn't bring it in. So Terry McLaurin kind of had an up and down day. He had some drops, he had a fumble, but not completely bad, because again, when you go for 4 receptions and 112 yards, overall, you still had a pretty good day. But my point is, man, number 1 receivers make that catch, dog. You want to be considered a top 10 receiver, right? Well, make top 10 receiver plays. How about that? Because I can tell you right now, Davante Adams makes that catch for that touchdown. I'm telling you that right now, easily. I'm not even saying trade for him. I'm not saying that at all. But that's a good argument that Terry McLaurin just made it easier for somebody, if they wanted to say why we need to trade for Davante Adams. You just gave those type of people ammo. Even though I'm in the boat of, if anything, you trade for a corner, not necessarily receiver, you need to go out there and make those type of plays, man. But maybe that's just not your game. That's more of a Noah Brown thing. thing. So Noah Brown will start to get more targets in those situations than a Terry McLaurin will. We'll see. Also, shouts out to Bryson Tremaine, because that big time Jeremy McNichols first down run where it was like 3rd and 11, 3rd and 13 or whatever, he ended up getting like a 30-yard run off of it. It was because Bryson Tremaine was on the outside doing a great job of blocking. And then shouts out to Cliff Kingsbury, because I love this. Shortly after Bryson Tremaine had that great blocking play that allowed Jeremy McNichols to get that 30-yard first down so we can continue to run the clock out, a couple of plays after that, we just threw a random screen to him. And I feel like Cliff Kingsbury did that on purpose to be like, okay, you worked your tail off blocking and doing the dirty work. How about we reward you with a screen pass to see if you can get some stats up on the board to make a play or something like that. You've earned it, basically. I love that. Now, the screen pass ended up going for like -3 yards, -2 yards or whatever. But either way, I love that thinking from Cliff Kingsbury. Absolutely love that, man. Also, again, just to go back to Terry McLaurin real quick, man. I mean, the shoestring tackle, the dropped to catch in the corner of the end zone, the fumble, bro. I would say those are 3 things that I have to pinpoint. Like, man, we could have scored 50 if Terry McLaurin just does everything that he's supposed to do alone. But again, it's hard to get on a receiver that has 4 catches for 112 yards. So still shouts out to Terry. Maybe he's just not used to having a quarterback this great to where he's not even used to having to make these sort of plays. So I'm thinking over time, as he gets more opportunities, he'll grow as a receiver as well. As Jayden Daniels grows as a quarterback, I think Terry McLaurin will grow as a receiver, because right now he's not necessarily a hands receiver. Maybe he never will be, but he's only going to get better as he starts to get more opportunities, because he's not used to getting these opportunities this often. Tight end wise, I mean, Zach Ertz kind of had a bad receiving day overall, dropping passes, made us think even one of them was a fumble at the red zone and things like that. It just wasn't a good overall day necessarily. Now, granted, I mean, how many yards did he end up with? He ended up with some receiving yards, at least supposed to be. Yeah, he had 2 catches for 10 yards overall. I mean, not a great receiving day, but at least the tight ends as a whole, and I believe even including Zach Ertz, from what I remember, blocked their tails off today. Now, I'm still waiting to see when we finally unleash Ben Sinnott onto somebody, especially with his yards after catch ability and elite athleticism. But so far, right now, the tight end group is just a bunch of elite blockers. Zach Ertz has his games where he's a good receiving target, but right now they're just helping keeping Jayden Daniels safe and also allowing these running backs to rush for 215 yards. You don't run for 215 yards, over 200 yards 2 consecutive games purely just by your offensive line alone. No, these tight ends are blocking very well, and these wide receivers are also blocking very well, and I'm loving what I'm seeing as an overall team effort. These guys are definitely bought in, because they know as long as they do the dirty work and they block well, even as a tight end, they know that it's producing results. So why would you get lazy? Why would you start to pout and complain that you're not getting the ball if it's leading to winning football? As long as you win, it all works out. If you, for some reason, you're not winning, I can see why a tight end would be like, well, at least throw me the ball every now and then so I can have something to show for it, even while we're losing and things like that. But we're winning, so that's why it's easy for everybody to buy in and even do the things that most people don't necessarily want to do. Now, moving on to the offensive line, Brandon Coleman started today for the first time, and now granted, the very first snap he got beat by Myles Garrett, and it was a sack that Samuel Cosmi ended up allowing technically, but Myles Garrett did beat him that very first play. Zadarian Smith beat Samuel Cosmi, I mean, immediately, so quickly that even though Brandon Coleman got beat as well, it was Samuel Cosmi got beat so bad it was nothing you could really do. Like, Myles Garrett had no chance because Zadarian Smith beat Samuel Cosmi so bad. But either way, though, Brandon Coleman settled down and ended up being a pretty good blocker for us today, even against the worst matchup we've had all season. Myles Garrett is easily the best edge rusher we faced all season, and they did a great job against him. We'll talk about that soon with some stats. First of all, Tyler Biadasz is one of the best centers in the NFL, dog. He balled out today, man. How about 66 snaps against the Browns, 0 sacks allowed, 0 pressure, 0 hits, 0 penalties, and an 84.5 Pro Football Focus pass blocking grade. This guy is elite, man. Also, let's talk about Myles Garrett specifically. How about 31 pass rushing snaps, 3 pressures, 0 sacks. Only 3 pressures, 0 sacks, and I believe his first pressure came immediately first play of the game, and after that only had 2 for the rest of the game. Come on, dog. They did a great job against them. So now let's break it down. Even though Brandon Coleman technically started, Cornelius Lucas ended up outpacing them in snaps. Brandon Coleman had 17 snaps to Cornelius Lucas's 20. But either way, my point is, Brandon Coleman 17 snaps, 2 pressures allowed. Samuel Cosmi 37 snaps, 2 pressures allowed. Cornelius Lucas 20 snaps, 1 pressure allowed. Nick Allegretti 34 snaps, 1 pressure allowed. Andrew Wiley 37 snaps, 1 pressure allowed. Tyler Biadasz, 37 snaps, 0 pressures allowed. This group, even though they weren't perfect today, were still really good for Jayden Daniels. Also, shouts out to Chris Russell for this one. He said, ran in briefly to Commanders GM Adam Peters in a victorious locker room. After we exchanged a hello and a quick conversation, he was headed right to the offensive line group, including Samuel Cosme. He knows how good of a job those guys are doing right now. I mean, they're protecting his biggest investment right now in Jayden Daniels. They're doing a great job, and I love the fact that Adam Peters is willing to even acknowledge that, to go purposely out of his way to the offensive line to thank them for what they've been doing. They have been playing at an elite level. I can't even necessarily say good. They've been playing at an elite level with how much time Jayden Daniels has in the pocket from game to game. He had less today than he's had the previous 2 weeks, but it was still in comparison to what most quarterbacks are dealing with, a lot of time. And then Jayden Daniels, even when the offensive line messes up, his legs are so great, he makes them better. So they make him better, he makes them better. It's just so mutual everywhere. Cliff Kingsbury makes them better, but they also make Cliff Kingsbury better. There's situations where Cliff Kingsbury may call the wrong play, and Jayden Daniels is going to make him right just by using his legs alone, or even making the right throw, or audibling at the line of scrimmage, change your protections and things like that. Everybody is making everybody good. That's why I hate when people are acting like Jayden Daniels is just in this perfect situation. No, Jayden Daniels is making the situation perfect. How about that? Now moving on to the defensive side of the ball. And boy, that defense look good today, man. Them boys look good, man. Golly, that garbage time touchdown does not count from the Browns, man. Technically, they really only allowed 6 points until they just started to play weak defense, trying to avoid injuries above all else. Let's just get out of this game safe and sound. Quan Martin even came out of the game, even though he was hurt. But I wouldn't even be surprised if other starters came out of the game that I just didn't notice. But either way, let's go in chronological order. First of all, at a certain point in the game, they used Jameis Winston on 4th and 1, and he came up short, and that was a great start for the defense. I believe that was the very first drive, or one of the first two, and the stadium was already extremely loud already at that point. Shouts out to my boy at Bleeding Burgundy and Gold. He said it is loud in here, so I'm assuming he was at the game. He tweeted that directly from the stadium, and man, I mean, that was a big time stop for the defense to get a stop on 4th down. Frankie Luvu got into the backfield quickly and did just enough by basically kind of tripping up the running back, and then the running back fell on his own on that 4th down play. That was elite stuff from Frankie Luvu. We're going to talk about him because he had an all-pro game. I would argue Frankie Luvu was the MVP of the game. He got the game ball at the end of the game, and you know, of course, he hyped up the locker room. He is our locker room hype up guy before we even walk out into the field. He is basically the spirit of this defense, the spirit of this team, and he played like it. He played like the best player on this team today, regardless of defense or offense, man. And then the second defensive drive, strong 3 and out immediately. 1st and 10, 7-yard loss blown up by Jonathan Allen. 2nd and 17, pressure from Armstrong and Allen. And then 3rd and 17, nice coverage on a throwaway, man. The defense was off to its best start of the season at that point, and the home crowd was definitely helping. They were feeding off of it. Like I say, the more we win, the better we play, the louder the crowd gets. The louder the crowd gets, the better we play, because they disrupt what the opposing team's offense has going on. I mean, and I love the fact that even after we immediately went 3 and out on our first possession with the offense, and I was starting to look like, is this Browns defense that serious? Are we coming back down to earth? Our defense came out and responded immediately. We even had a spy on Deshaun Watson on 3rd down. I believe it was Percy Butler who was a spy on the play. So we definitely had to spy him a few times, which I understand. The Browns started to do the same thing against Jayden Daniels. Also, shouts out to Craig Hoffman for pointing this out. Good simulated pressure on 3rd down by Joe Witt Jr. and the Commanders defense. Luvu lined up at edge and then took the running back man-to-man while Wagner came. Watson scrambled but had nowhere to go. Good late pressure on the scramble by Butler flying down as well. We are flying around on defense right now. We're not just talking defensive linemen. We're talking about linebackers and DBs getting in on the pressure party. Deshaun Watson was under duress all day. He had no idea what was going on because we were switching things up so much. Our coverage was changing. Who we sent at the quarterback blitzing wise and things like that was changing. Frankie Luvu coming off the edge, or Frankie Luvu coming through the A gap right at the center. All kinds of stuff was going on. Joe Witt Jr. was in his bag today. He deserves his credit, man. I mean, it was so amazing. We through the first 2 drives, the defense was spectacular, and I was starting to look at the offense like, all right, when y'all gonna bounce back? What's going on, man? What's going on? Shouts out to the Browns for being bad, but the defense was still elite. I mean, through 3 possessions, the Browns didn't have a single first down. This defense, you could argue, was dominant today because, again, they technically only allowed 6 points. Now, granted, again, it's a Browns offense that's pretty bad, but that's still a dominant performance regardless, man. I mean, they were bailing the offense out after we had that turnover, the interception to the 1-yard line by Jayden Daniels. The defense did a good job of getting off the field off of that. And then the offense had a short field to work with, and I believe we even scored a touchdown after that. So the defense, playing great defense, led to touchdowns for the offense, man. And then there was at a certain point where, like, Amari Cooper was wide open. Deshaun missed him by several yards, man. I mean, it's just so nice to go against a quarterback that doesn't always hit perfect passes all day, man. They were the worst offense in the NFL according to DVOA, and they looked like it today, but this defense probably put them down even further a notch because this was their worst performance all. Man, look at me sounding like Medea out here, man. But either way, man, they were flying around and hitting today, man. This is the type of mentality and playing style that Joe Wood Jr. preached about all offseason. We didn't necessarily see it the first couple of weeks, but as they get more confident, as they start to gain more chemistry amongst each other, the communication is better. Everybody's understanding their roles in the defense a little bit better. That's what's allowing them to fly around and play more physical. They're thinking less, moving more, and that's when the defense starts to become great. They're starting to turn into that defense that I thought they could be in the offseason. The first 2 weeks made me a little nervous, but now they're starting to put it together, but with great reason. I've talked about this for a few weeks now, but these guys did not play in the preseason. This is an entirely new defense with multiple, like half the defense has new starters, probably more than half right now, and they didn't even really play in the preseason. A lot of these guys missed a lot of the training camp even with injuries or whatever, and the fact that these guys, it took them a couple of weeks and now they're starting to ball out, man. I mean, boy, Deshaun Watson was terrible, but this defense was dominant today, man. I mean, after looking a little ugly weeks 1 through 3, the defense is starting to really show up, man. I mean, 14 points allowed versus Arizona last week, and then only 3 so far in the first half, and the Browns were 0 of 6 on third downs at one point. We're going to talk about that later. Also, some defensive grades from the first half. Frankie Luvu had a 91.1 grade as the first half. Jonathan Allen had an 85.6, and Quan Martin had an 81.2. Those were some of your defensive MVPs of the first half according to Pro Football Focus. And then, hey, shouts out to Jerry Jeudy for dropping a touchdown, one of the very few accurate passes from Deshaun Watson that day, today. But great stop. First of all, great pressure on Deshaun Watson, and Mike Sanford still had pretty good coverage, but it was more so a drop by the receiver than anything else, and I'm not mad at that. And then what was that situation where Deshaun Watson just walked off the field straight to the bench on 4th down? That was weird. Like, I don't know what was going on. They already used the timeout, and then immediately after that, they almost basically took a delay of game instead of calling another one. They had the ball at the Commanders too, and they ended up kicking a field goal, they were down at 24-6 at that time instead of going for the touchdown. I don't understand what was going on. Shouts out to Craig Hoffman. He said total incompetence by the Browns continues. They looked like they were going for it on 4th and goal at the 8, but couldn't get the personnel play right, and then take a delay of game and then kick a field goal instead. Damaged by Terry McLaurin's fumble, mitigated by the defense. We only allowed 3 points even though they started with the ball in perfect striking distance for a touchdown, man. I mean, was it a situation maybe where the crowd was so loud that he couldn't hear? Maybe the crowd caused that. I don't know. But shouts out to Chris Russell for this. So a rundown of that Browns ineptitude on offense on that pass drive after the Terry McLaurin fumble. False start at Washington 2. Timeout before running another play, which is crazy. How do you even have to call a timeout after you have a false start? You just still didn't have enough time to get that play in? Maybe it was the crowd. I don't know. Then a sack allowed after that. Then an incompletion under pressure, and then a delay of game before the field goal, man. At that point, they only had 2 scoring drives, a field goal, and another field goal. And when you really look at it, it looks like their head coach, Kevin Stefanski, wanted to go for it on 4th down, but then Deshaun Watson looked like he just quit on the team and walked off the field. I don't know what that was. And then at a certain point, the Browns were 0 of 9 on third downs and had more punts than first downs in that game at a certain point. Elite stuff, man. Also, we got to the point where our defense was having so much fun that Mitch Tisler pointed out the fact that Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne played rock, paper, scissors at the 40-yard line to see who would stay in the game for that 3rd and long play. And then the Commanders had the Browns at 0 of 11 on third downs up to that point, and the Commanders had 7 sacks on the day as well, because that was like, they rock, paper, scissors to see who would stay on the field, and then immediately after that, I think it was the Dante Fowler sack right after that. And up to that point, the defense was only allowing 3.4 yards per play with 8 minutes left in the 4th quarter, well after we sat Jayden Daniels in the 4th quarter. So this was super garbage time. Of course, they scored that touchdown in garbage time, and that was arguably Deshaun Watson's best throw of the game, and that was the only play that he even kind of looked like Houston Texans Watson that the Browns traded for. And I feel so sorry for them, because they had Baker Mayfield, and then they ended up trading him because they believed in Deshaun Watson. Now Baker Mayfield's balling for the Buccaneers, and Deshaun Watson is completely selling their cap space right right now. Shouts out to Joe Witt Jr. because at the end of the day, they only allowed 212 total yards. The Browns were 1 of 13 on third down. The only one they converted was in garbage time. We also had an interception. Technically, I guess they credited Frankie Luvu with an interception right there. And we also had 7 sacks. That was crazy, man. And again, garbage time touchdown is the only touchdown for the day for the Browns. We already sat some starters. I don't even count it. And so just to let you know some final stats from them. First of all, Deshaun Watson was 15 of 28, 125 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions though, 7 sacks for a loss of 33 yards total. And then even just like overall team stats, man, to run through it, we already talked about third downs. Fourth down wise, they were 2 of 3. Shouts out to them for that. And they ran only six less plays than us, yet they had less than half of our yards. While we had 434 total yards, they only had 212. And again, they only ran 6 less plays. We had 6.7 yards per play. They had 3.6. We had 219 yards passing. They had 108. We had 215 yards rushing. They only had 104. They also had more penalties for more yards, and we also won time of possession by only a little less than 3 minutes. Like, it wasn't even dramatic. Again, they only ran 6 less plays than us. We were just far more efficient than those guys right there. And they had 12 first downs to our 19. I mean, just overall elite performance from the defense, dog. Shouts out to them because they helped this offense recover. The offense wasn't off to a good start. The defense bailed them out and even bailed out Terry McLaurin to start the third quarter after he had that fumble, and then our offense handled the rest, man. Let's move on to the defensive line. First of all, Jonathan Allen immediately in the game, early on in the game, like second defensive drive, that blow up on that screen was huge, man. You could tell he was reading the tweets, dog. He had an excellent game today, all game, especially that first half, man. Jonathan Allen was balling out that first half. And then, how about some Phidarian Mathis, man? I mean, dare I say that was the best day of his life, like the best game of his, especially his Commander's life. I don't necessarily remember his Alabama tape that well, but I don't remember him being that impactful there either, man. He had a big run stop one drive, and then the very next drive, he had a batted down pass, and then he continued to make more plays. Like halfway through the third quarter, he made another run stop in the backfield. He was eating up double teams. He's our answer to stopping the run right now. We haven't been able to stop the run, and I did a film session that was exclusive to channel members only. If you're a channel member, you probably already saw it, but before this Browns game, I pointed out the fact that Johnny Newton is showing flashes of greatness, but whenever he gets double teamed, he's useless at that point. Phidarian Mathis stepped up big time, not allowing teams to double team us and run it straight to that gap. Johnny Newton's not built for that. Phidarian Mathis is. Shouts out to him, man. Again, Jonathan Allen not only had his best game of the season so far, I would argue by far, but Phidarian Mathis had the best game of his life. And then Armstrong did a great job on getting a sack on Deshaun Watson, but that was like a hustle sack. So shouts out to Dorrance Armstrong for hustling for that, but I would say that was more so a coverage sack. I mean, he got that sack like 5 to 7 seconds after the ball was snapped. That was purely a coverage sack, but shouts out to Dorrance Armstrong for never giving up on the play. And then I would also argue that Deron Payne had his best game today all season so far, man. He was balling out today, eating up double teams, getting into the backfield, man. Again, Phidarian Mathis, I mean, one play, he literally pancaked the center when he batted down that pass that I was talking about from earlier, man. Literally just pancaked the center on his back. Literally just landed on his butt one-on-one. I mean, you block Phidarian Mathis one-on-one, I guess that's a problem now. The offenses can't do that right now. And then he was able to bat that ball down from Deshaun Watson. Honestly, it should have been a sack, but Deshaun Watson just did a good job of getting the ball out of his hands real quick to avoid the sack because they were close to field goal range. Shouts out to him for that. And then Deron Payne got to Deshaun Watson to call the ball to pop out of his hands to Frankie Luvu, man. I think Bobby Wagner was in on that play as well, man. And that was the third takeaway of the season for the Commanders. And that's the one where we're debating whether it was a fumble or an interception. Because I thought, if anything, Bobby Wagner kind of forced a fumble and then Frankie Luvu called it out of the air. But I think they're counting it as an interception. But either way, including the inside linebackers that we have, Bobby Wagner and Frankie Luvu, and this defensive line, we ended up with 7 sacks. Now, granted, Frankie Luvu had the most for 2.5. Bobby Wagner had the second most for 1.5. And then 1 for Jonathan Allen, 1 for Dorrance Armstrong, and 1 for Dante Fowler. But even the guys whose names you don't see up there, Deron Payne and Phidarian Mathis, also balled out as well. But I also want to point out the fact that when your 2 inside linebackers have 4 sacks combined on a 7-sack day from your defense, that is Joe Witt Jr. that deserves the most praise right there, man. Great coaching. Also, after the game, Deron Payne confirmed that it was rock, paper, scissors. Deron threw paper, Jonathan Allen threw scissors, but John just went ahead and let Deron Payne stand on the field anyway. And that just shows you how much fun these guys are having. They're having rock, paper, scissors games in the middle of games. That might have even been still in the third quarter, maybe not even in the fourth. And they're doing rock, paper, scissors to see who stays on the field. That's the type of stuff you can do when you're playing at an elite level. Speaking of an elite level, let's go ahead and move on to this linebacker group, dog, because all-pro Luvu is not playing with y'all, man. Luvu had an elite fourth down stop in the first quarter, man. That was elite stuff. Then he also had good coverage later on, and then he sacked Deshaun Watson after beating two offensive linemen, a spin move on the center to get past him, and then he hit some elite tracking speed to not only run right past the left guard, but then to also track down Deshaun Watson to where he couldn't get away. Then he got another sack later on third down, halfway through the third quarter. This guy was everywhere. And at that point, having two sacks, Frankie Luvu recorded his second sack of the game. It was the third time in his career he's had multiple sacks in a game. It was the first time he's done it since week 2 of the 2023 season, man. He's been playing at an all-pro level these last 2 weeks, man. And then he went and got himself another one. Him and Bobby Wagner combined for a sack, which is why they each got a half a sack right there. Just elite stuff, man. They destroyed that Browns offensive line on that play, man. And then again, we had the controversial play where Wagner kind of had like a sack fumble, it looked like, and the ball didn't even hit the ground. Frankie Luvu called it out of the air. We ended up with a turnover regardless, but it looks like they're saying that they're going to call it an interception. Grant Paulson said Frankie Luvu as an interception to his 1.5 sack game. At the end of it, he ended up with 2.5, man. Deshaun Watson danced around for 9 seconds, then ran into and out of some pressure, then got drilled by Bobby Wagner, and the ball popped up and into Frankie Luvu's chest. Again, another situation where it was great coverage on the back end by DBs to even cover for 9 seconds and force that play to happen. Also, Bobby Wagner has now recorded his 35th sack of the game of his career, so shouts out to him. And then Frankie Luvu got another one again with the Bobby Wagner elite open field tackle on David Njoku right after that as well. Stopped all of his momentum. So Frankie Luvu sack, then Bobby Wagner elite open field tackle on David Njoku, and then they ended up third and long, Dante Fowler sack right after that. Defense was so hyped. The stadium was so hyped. It was amazing, man. And so Frankie Luvu ended up with 2.5 sacks. Outstanding the last 2 weeks, man. He's literally the heart and soul of this team, dog. I mean, Adam Peters finesse the Carolina Panthers being able to pull him away for free in free agency, dog, man. This is why we signed Frankie Luvu. He's easily been our best linebacker since London Fletcher. I may have to do a film session on him because that's ridiculous. And then during garbage time, Jamin Davis even came into the game and had an elite stop in the backfield on the Browns offense. In the run game, it was like a loss of 2 yards. It was 8 minutes left in the game. Shouts out to him. That was big time right there. But then to finalize the day, Frankie Luvu had 10 pass rushing snaps, 5 pressures, 3 sacks, technically 2.5, 93.5 pass rush grade, and then they technically credited him with the interception on that controversial play. The best single game defensive performance we've seen from a Commanders player in a long time. I agree, Mason Kinahan over there. Now let's move on to the corners. Second defensive drive, great coverage by Mike Sanverstill, one play, and then Jeremy Chin, I believe, the immediate play after that. And then also Mike Sanverstill did a great job. Deshaun Watson tried to scramble for a first down, and Mike Sanverstill popped him out of bounds, and then things got a little chippy between the two teams, but great job by Mike Sanverstill telling them basically get your weight up. I know I'm small, but that don't mean nothing. I'm gonna hit you and you gonna feel it. You gonna go out of bounds, man. Don't play with me like that. And then St. Juice got beat with some soft coverage that honestly I may put more blame on Joe Wood Jr. I'm not gonna lie, because the coverage was so soft. I'm assuming that was just a technique he was told to do. But then a couple of plays later, he had great coverage on Amari Cooper to force an incomplete pass. It was beautiful, man. I would say that the secondary period played well today, especially all of the corners. Now, granted, Emmanuel Forbes only played 4 snaps today, but I didn't even necessarily notice him on the field when he was out there, so he must have played well enough. But Mike Sanverstill is your other outside corner right now. It's Benjamin St. Juice, Mike Sanverstill, and then you have Noah Benogany pretty much as your slot corner, but they kind of switch in and out with Mike Sanverstill and Noah Benogany a little bit. But basically, your outside corners are Benjamin St. Juice, who I felt like had a good overall day, even on Amari Cooper. Even though he was open sometimes, Deshaun Watson missed him. I feel like it was an overall good day. And I'm not going to lie, I saw J.C. Horn in that Panthers game get ejected after a fight, after a Bears touchdown. Hey, man, there's turmoil over there. Bring another Panther over here. We already brought over Jeremy Chin. We already brought over Frankie Luvu. Let's get a third Carolina Panthers defender in J.C. Horn, because I feel like this cornerback group would be great if Benjamin St-Juste isn't the #1 corner. You basically take everybody on the depth chart, move them down one spot. This cornerback group is elite. I feel like J.C. Horn makes this cornerback group elite. I love Benjamin St-Juste as a cornerback too. I just don't necessarily love him as a cornerback one. But you allow J.C. Horn to cover the other team's best receivers, let Benjamin St-Juste cover the second best or the bigger guy, since he's 6'3" and really long. Mike Sanford still running around the field doing what he does. Noah Benogany subbing in every now and then. That's a pretty good cornerback group in my opinion. Now moving on to the safeties, Quan Martin. Man, he almost had himself a pick, dog. You had to intercept that one. Perfect read right through his hands. Should have caught it, but still a great read nonetheless, man. And then at a certain point, he was slow to get up late in the game in garbage time, where we were pretty much playing soft coverage, and then we would just rally to the ball after they completed a pass underneath. He ended up walking off on his own. They said it was a shoulder injury, and he was evaluated for a concussion, but then he was cleared to return, so it must not be that bad, but he is a little banged up, so keep that in mind. But great news is he could have returned into that game if he needed to. If the game were close for any crazy reason, we could have thrown Quan Martin back out there, so that's good news. So a great game from him. And then Jeremy Chin, I'm gonna have to just look at the all 22 because I didn't necessarily notice him out there, but I mean, that's probably a good thing. Again, for a DB, if you don't notice him out there, that's probably a great thing. That means he wasn't getting beat in coverage. I love it. And then Percy Butler, the only time I really noticed him was him spying on Deshaun Watson. I also didn't necessarily notice him that much in that game. That's a good thing. And then Derek Forrest, I think the only time I saw him come in was on special teams. That may be it. Either way, speaking of special teams, let's go ahead and move on. First of all, this was a double kicker revenge game. Shouts out to Ben Standig for pointing that out, because this was Austin Cyborg going against his former team, and also Dustin Hopkins of the Browns going against his former team, the Commanders. I thought that was pretty interesting. Also, shouts out to the Browns, man, because they were dysfunctional on all facets of the game, because that stupid penalty of running into Olamide Zaccheaus after he fair caught the punt helped us big time, and instead of us starting with the ugly field positioning, we ended up starting at the 34-yard line instead of the 19, so I really appreciated that. And then Jeremy McNichols, not only did he have a great game as a running back filling in for the times that, you know, again, Brian Robinson, we couldn't run the ball with him too much because he was banged up, but he had an elite special teams coverage play where he made a big time hit, man. Had the whole defense hype and everything, man. Shouts out to Jeremy McNichols there. Also, Jeremy Reeves, why are you holding on a kick return? Your holding didn't even necessarily help out whoever was returning that kick, so I didn't like that. I love All-Pro Revo. He's still an All-Pro guy, but you got to be better there. And then, of course, the MVP of special teams, man. Austin Cyborg is perfect right now so far this season right now, man. Now, granted, shouts out to the offense for not putting them in ugly situations to where he has to kick 50-yarders and things like that. I feel like the offense deserves a lot of credit for this, but right now he is perfect on the season since we brought him in. He is 12 of 12 on field goal attempts, 12 on 12 on PATs as well. This guy is playing at an elite level. Again, his name is Austin Cyborg, but I call him Cyborg because he must got a little bit of robot in him and a little bit of AI programming with as automatic as he is, man. But again, this offense is so elite, he never really has to kick it that far. Also, special teams wise, I loved what I saw from Tressway, how mad he was towards the end of the game. He bounced into the end zone. It was like 2 minutes and 28 seconds left in the fourth quarter, and the kick ended up going into like the end zone or something like that. It was either the third quarter or the fourth quarter. I don't remember exactly, but his punt, he wanted it to land like within the 5-yard line. It bounced into the end zone. He was livid about it, and I thought that was honestly one of the funniest parts of the game, and like how high his expectations are for himself, because that was amazing right there, man. Shouts out to him. And then before we get up out of here, I have other people's reviews I want to include because I felt like they brought up great points, and I'll also have a few random other thoughts before we get up out of here as well. Now for other people's reviews and opinions that I felt like were very notable, and I wanted to bring them up. First of all, John Kahn pointed out that Washington has won the last 2 games by a combined 49 points. Yes, that is a real sentence. That's insane. Also, shouts out to Grant Paulson. The Commanders are 4-1 for the first time since 2008 and just the second time in 25 years. Also, remember that 2008 season, I believe that was Jason Campbell, and we ended up winning a couple of more games to end up being like 5-2, 6-2 or something like that. It was off to a great start, but let's not finish how that season ended up finishing. Let's keep this going. This is also the first time Washington has won back-to-back games by 20 points or more since 1997, y'all. Golly, that's the last time we've done that. Is insane. Also, shouts out to Grant Paulson. Several things can be true at once. 1, I like how the Commanders defense is playing today. Number 2, the Browns offense is a tire fire. 3, Watson is not a startable quarterback at this juncture. And number 4, I'm a Frankie Luvu guy. I completely agree. All 4 can be true. Just because the Browns offense is good does not mean you take away anything from this defense. Also, shouts out to Commanders realm because he always has a bunch of final thoughts at the end of the game. He said, first of all, 5 games of excellence from Jayden Daniels is no longer a fluke. It's for real. He didn't even need 4 quarters. Completely agree. Also, they got Terry McLaurin involved early and often. Also, they have a 3-headed monster at running back. Shouts out to Jeremy McNichols for contributing, man. I love it. Also, the defense was giving Watson hell. I agree. Offensive line and defensive line both dominated the trenches today. That's how you win games. They also didn't mention Myles Garrett once. All he had was 3 pressures, no sacks, as we talked about earlier. Out of the many Commanders that have rolled through here, Frankie Luvu is the best one easily and didn't play for Rivera either in that stint. So maybe it just took for a non-Rivera head coach to finally bring in some Commanders for them to finally succeed. Also, St. Jude's had a very good game from what I noticed. I agree. I got to look at the All-22 to confirm that. Also, De'Ami Brown finally made some plays. Thank you for stepping up. We lost one Brown. The other Brown stepped up. Austin Ekeler's signing has completely exceeded expectations. He can run it, catch it, block it, and return it. I completely agree. I got to say that again. He can run it, catch it, block it, and return it. That's what I've been emphasizing these past few weeks. He has been a huge help to everything we've been doing. Also, the Browns offense is awful, but I don't think that diminishes how dominant the Washington defense was today. I completely agree. Don't take anything away from us. Also, I can't really find any negatives. Best start to the season since George Bush was president. That is insane stuff right there. Shouts out to Rick Snyder. He gave flash grades. He said quarterback A, running back A+, wide receiver A+, tight end A-, offensive line A, defensive line A, linebacker A+, defensive backs A++, his best grade of the day from anybody, special teams A, and also coaching A. The lowest grade he gave out was an A- to the tight ends. That's when you know you cooked on a day. Also, Grant Paulson, he said the Commanders are about to be 4-1. Daniels made huge plays. Ekeler shined. Rebuilt line held up well. Luvu balled. Armstrong was good. And Wagner is a stud as well. Then at Hogshaven, he said, watch so many games on the other side of this. I love being on this side. I completely agree. It's nice to not be the ones getting blown out for a change and to be the ones actually doing the blowing out, man. That's new stuff that we're not necessarily used to right now. Also, shouts out to some of the players' feedback at the end of the game. Jonathan Allen said, quote, in the locker room after the victory, this is the hungriest group of guys I've ever been around, unquote. But it's not just him. Terry McLaurin after the game said, quote, the vibes are really high in here, unquote. And then Austin Ekeler, even in his press conference, well, his little interview in the locker room after the game, he said Jayden Daniels will always produce a wild play every week. And basically what that means is that this team believes in him. They know no matter what the situation is, Jayden Daniels is going to pull some rabbit out of his hat to give us a chance to win every single game. We can win any game that we play just because Jayden Daniels is your quarterback and this team believes in him. And I love that. And these are veterans that have played with a lot of elite players. Remember, Austin Ekeler was there when Justin Herbert won Offensive Rookie of the Year, and he has this much belief in Jayden Daniels. Also, shouts out to Grant Paulson. He was there in the locker room after the game. He said the Commanders locker room was hyped. Very confident bunch. Guys thought they were going to work the Browns coming in. They're starting to believe. So he's pointing out the fact that not only do they love and they're believing in the system even after, through the game, out the game, after the game, but also even going into the game, they believe they can win this game. And then the fact that they came in with belief and still dominated, which means maybe we're not a team that allows trap games. We're not a team that overlooks opponents. We're confident going into facing opponents, but that doesn't mean that we're walking in just assuming we're gonna win and overlooking guys. So it's a perfect combination of confidence, but also some carefulness as well. Also, shouts out to @DC Dre per usual. He said the Commanders team makes me want to binge watch them. Right after the game, I'm ready to watch another episode. I completely agree, man. When was the last time we've ever wanted to rewatch Commanders games? Even after wins, I'm like, that was fun, but what does it mean even long term? Is it even worth really rewatching this? look at it again for the All-22 to like find out like who played well, who didn't, and things like that in certain situations, so we can start to evaluate this team long term and see who deserves to be here and who doesn't deserve to be here when we get things going. But now, I mean, I'm willing to just rewatch the broadcast view that we saw as fans during the game live. Like, I'm just kicking back, letting the game run. I haven't felt like that about the Commanders for a while. I've been doing that for my Georgia Bulldogs basically since Kirby Smart got here, but the Commanders, I haven't been able to do that really until this year, so I'm very excited. Now, randomly, before we get up out of here, shouts out to JP Finley for being in the tunnel after the game. They were super fired up. We have now won 4 games in a row, and it feels like it because the players as they're coming into the locker room are so hyped, so energetic. Of course, they're tired after a game like that, but they were so energetic. And then shouts out to Jay Gruden. Shouts out to him for posting this photo, and this was like still in the second quarter when he posted this. As you can see, he's standing next to a lady that says, "I survived the Snyder era, 1999 to 2003. He tweeted and with that picture and said, "Glad somebody did." I love that tweet. I think that's really funny. I love the fact that he said that, man, because he technically didn't survive it. He's one of the victims of it, but he said, "Hey, man, I'm glad for the Commanders Nation that y'all are." Basically, shouts out to Jay Gruden for that one. Also, shouts out to David Harrison. He pointed out the fact that here's a first. We have the wave happening at Northwest Stadium. Literally never saw that before in Landover, Maryland in his life. As his grown adult life, he's never seen that before. When have we ever had a reason to do the wave? So shouts out to that. Also, shouts out to Jordan Giorgio for pointing this out. Imagine being a little kid and this is your first Washington game. Quote, "Now listen, son," unquote. Basically to let them know, hand on shoulder, it wasn't always like this. It was not always like this, man. Some people have it good as young Commanders fans right now, where all they're seeing is this. This is your first season as a Commanders fan. Bless your heart, man. That's amazing. Also, right now, we're leading the division. Now, granted, the Cowboys have a game against the Steelers. Hopefully, the Steelers win. But even if the Cowboys and the Eagles win, and the Giants did win, but even if the Cowboys and the Eagles win, we still sit alone at the top of the NFC East regardless. So all we got to do is keep winning and nobody else can catch up to us. It's that simple. Also, man, Adam Peters killed it in the offseason, man. Tyler Biadasz, Nick Allegretti, Austin Eckler, Jeremy McNichols, Zach Ertz, Frankie Luvu, Bobby Wagner, Dorrance Armstrong, and Jeremy Chin, all free agent signings by this team, all strong contributors to the success that we're having right now. Tyler Biadasz, your starting center. Nick Allegretti, your starting left guard. Austin Eckler is one of your top running backs. Jeremy McNichols as your third running back, killing it as well, playing better than even some teams' #1 running back. Zach Ertz, your #1 tight end. Frankie Luvu and Bobby Wagner, your 2 dominant inside linebackers right now, even with Bobby Wagner at this age. And then Dorrance Armstrong and Jeremy Chin, you're right now, Dorrance Armstrong may be leading our team in sacks right now at this point with Cleveland Farrell out a couple of weeks, and Jeremy Chin has played a big role in our success the past few weeks as well after having a bad first couple of weeks, man. And shouts out to Rigo's Rag, because I agree. He said Commanders have nothing to fear in Baltimore next week. Nothing, especially if you just watch their game against the Bengals. Now, granted, the Ravens are early 7-point favorites this week, but that was just a couple of hours ago. If you go look right now it's down to 6.5. They're still favorites by almost a touchdown, but I wonder what made it go down a little bit within just the past couple of hours since I woke up from my nap. After eating and taking a nap and getting my voice back together, recovering, that's why I was able to do this video, but I wonder what happened since then. Also, when was the last time we had a home crowd advantage? When was the last time we sat starters near the beginning of a fourth quarter because we blew a team out that bad? When was the last time we had a franchise quarterback? How about that? When was the last time we were this confident in a future matchup against the Ravens? Since when? When did we start acting like this? Also, no more excuses after we beat the Ravens, dog. And I'm speaking it into existence because they've been coming up with different excuses after every win. People just refuse to believe in us, especially in the national media, man. I mean, the narrative seems to change every week, man. Because week 2, you beat a team without their kicker. Good luck playing against the Bengals on Monday Night Football after we beat the Giants. Okay, we beat the Bengals, then what after that? Bengals aren't even a good team. They were 1-2. Okay. Cardinals aren't that good either after we beat them suddenly, even though they just beat the 49ers. The Brown defense is too good for y'all. Okay, that's what I was hearing from the national media leading up to this game. Week 5 after we beat the Browns are the worst team in the league. Like, come on, dog. Y'all can't keep moving the goalpost, dog. I'm tired of these excuses. So after we beat the Ravens, I don't want to hear nothing. I don't want to hear not a thing, not a thing coming from the media about some random excuse why the Commanders aren't one of the best teams in the NFL, dog. Also, again, just to point out the fact that the Cardinals did beat the 49ers, we beat the Cardinals. Does that mean that we are better than the 49ers right now? I know the 49ers are missing Christian McCaffrey, and maybe they win that game with Christian McCaffrey, but the Cardinals still look like a good team, and we dismantled them boys. Not only just beat them, dismantled them. So I don't want to hear nothing, man. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Man, this is the first time I haven't had Jayden Daniels in the picture after a game, I believe, man. Frankie Luvu's performance was just that elite to where we had to have him in the background of this video, dog. But of course, do not leave this video without still following that like button. Of course, let me know in the comment section if you agree or disagree with any of my points. And also, of course, let me know any additional points that you may have noticed from players playing well, players playing poorly, whatever. Anything that I missed in this video, and I'm pretty sure I missed a lot because I can't be everywhere, and I've only seen this game like 1.5 times because, again, I watched the highlights again before I started recording. So let me know anything that I missed. Please let me know in the comment section because y'all always make me a smarter fan as well. I try to help y'all be smarter fans, and I love it when y'all do the same thing for me. Even if you disagree with my point and you're right, let me know why. I'm perfectly okay with being wrong, and you let me know why. So I appreciate any and all feedback. Let me know anything that happened in this game that I missed out on. Please make me a smartest fan. I really appreciate y'all. And of course, make sure y'all pull up because I will be live streaming that Ravens game, which more than likely looks like it's going to end up being at 1 p.m. because I think it's CBS who has it. They're not letting them flex it to another time because that means they would lose the game to another network, and they pay billions of dollars for that. So it's not going to happen. So be ready to pull up to my stream 1 p.m. against the Ravens next week. Let's go get that dub and go to 5-1. We're not playing with this NFL. We're going to make sure they know that we are here. Appreciate y'all. Again, do not leave this video without leaving a like. I appreciate y'all. Shouts out to everybody that pulled up to the live streams. I'm going to catch y'all later. I'm out.